All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the incredibly dramatic history and the totally unexpected modern revival of Banton's Lost Railway. We're going to look at a massive piece of infrastructure that was born out of global conflict, sparked this wild microeconomic boom, completely vanished into the jungle, and now, well, it's actually at the very center of a massive 20-year regional master plan.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this project, we have to start with one staggering number: 12 million. That is 12 million person-days of labor. Just imagine that monumental amount of human effort squeezed into barely 14 months of construction during the early 1940s.
And all that immense effort was poured into building an 89.35-kilometer single-track railway connecting Saketi to Bayah in South Banten, Indonesia. Winding through steep hills, crossing 29 different bridges, and dipping all the way down to the coast. It wasn't just some simple path in the woods. It was a major engineering feat, pulled off in an incredibly unforgiving tropical climate.
Chapter 1. Origins of the Death Railway.
The origins of this railway are deeply tied to the absolute turmoil of World War II. Its life cycle was incredibly fast and, frankly, pretty volatile. Construction kicked off at breakneck speed in July 1942 under Japanese occupation. It opened in 1944 and then almost immediately fell into total chaos by 1945. By 1951, it was completely dead. Yet, as we're going to see, 2025 is actually marking the beginning of its planned modern rebirth.
Now you might be wondering, why go through all that trouble to build it in the first place? Well, the motivation was purely logistical. When the Japanese occupied the Dutch East Indies, they desperately needed fuel. Without imported coal, locomotives on Java were literally running on wood. So to feed their war machine and achieve self-sufficiency, they set their sights on the brown coal deposits hidden away in South Banten. Make no mistake, this railway was strictly a tool for extraction.
But here's the dark reality. The human cost of building this logistical tool was just devastating. It's estimated that up to 60,000 forest laborers, known as Ramusha, lost their lives building this line. Imported from across Java or recruited locally right from Banten, these workers faced starvation, malaria, and absolutely grueling physical labor. The horrific conditions were so widely known that by 1944, literally no one would willingly sign up.
Chapter 2. Golden Age of Jelupang Station.
Despite those brutal origins, when the trains actually started rolling, they sparked this huge, albeit brief, socioeconomic boom for the local villages dotting the route. It's crucial to understand just how drastically daily life changed for locals in places like Sirahu village. Before the train, if someone like Misra wanted to travel to work or to a boarding school, they were looking at a grueling 30-kilometer walk through the wilderness. Suddenly, that exhausting all-day trek became a quick train ride taking just minutes. It instantly connected isolated farmers to entirely new markets. Take it from someone who was actually there. Siti, a local resident who is now 90 years old, gives us a quote that really humanizes all this historical data. It shows exactly how the newly built Jelupang station created instant microeconomics. People transitioned from forced manual labor to finding small entrepreneurial opportunities, like selling local snacks, gituk lindri, to the daily rush of passengers coming from inside and outside the region.
And we're not talking about a tiny wooden shack in the middle of nowhere. Jelupang Station was a massive, permanent, 100 by 50-meter brick hub. It was built strategically right next to a river so they could easily refill the water tanks of the steam locomotives. For just 14 cents, you could buy a ticket and suddenly be part of a vibrant, connected, mobile society.
Chapter 3. Closure and Banten's isolation.
So, what went wrong? Why did this golden age end so quickly? Well, it was a perfect storm of disasters that doomed the railway and plunged South Banten back into isolation. For starters, massive estimation errors. The Japanese thought they could extract 300,000 tons of coal a year. They barely scraped out 4,000. Add in bridge sabotages by local resistance groups like the Dipo Negoro, the mass departure of the labor force after 1945, and the sheer danger during the Dutch Operation Cry. The railways simply could not survive.
And then there was the local element. I love this vivid memory from another 90-year-old local, Sakharin. He pointed out that in a region famous for its jawara, or fierce fighters, asking for ticket money often resulted in a fist instead of cash. This complete lack of passenger revenue just accelerated the railway company's inevitable bankruptcy.
So, by August 1951, that was it. The whole operation was shut down.
The tracks were dismantled, the iron was shipped off to be reused elsewhere. The once bustling Jalupong station faded into memory, and the land eventually became the site for a local elementary school, SDN Chadahu 2. For decades, South Bon 10 was thrust right back into geographic isolation, forced to rely on a single, increasingly congested road network.
Chapter 4, the 2025 Reactivation Plan. Fast forward to today, and the story takes a massive turn. After decades of relying on inadequate, jammed-up roads, the government is stepping back in. This draft regional spatial plan for Banten signals a huge shift. The Saketi Bayah Railway is no longer just some tragic historical anecdote. It is now an active, ongoing government mandate designed to completely revive the southern region's connectivity.
So how are they actually going to pull this off? Well, the Ministry of Transportation and the state railway company PTKAI have laid out concrete steps. Even though things were delayed by budget shifts during the COVID-19 pandemic, the plan is officially back on track. Starting in 2025, they're set to begin land clearance, with a very ambitious target to have trains running on this route again by 2029.
But why does this matter so much today? Obviously, we're not feeling a war machine anymore. Today, it's about seamless passenger movement all the way to Jakarta. It's about opening up stunning southern beaches, like Pantai Sawarna, to serious tourism, and it's absolutely crucial for industrial freight, moving local agriculture and massive products like Merah cement efficiently.
Chapter 5. The Future of Spatial Planning.
This railway revival actually fits into a much bigger picture of how Bon 10 is completely redesigning its spatial footprint to support modern growth. The finalized spatial plan outlines a 20-year vision. The goal here is to turn Bon 10 into a highly connected, highly productive economic hub, trying to strike that perfect balance between industrial growth and environmental protection.
Under this plan, the region is carved up into specific development zones. The focus for Zone 3, which directly covers the Pandeglang and Lebak regencies right where our railway sits, is massive economic growth. We're talking expansion in agriculture, mining, fisheries, and tourism. And honestly, hitting those goals is virtually impossible without the railway returning to handle the heavy logistics.
Of course, progress like this doesn't happen without some growing pains. As local resident Sue points out, there's a human element to this reactivation. For decades, people have lived, farmed, and built schools right on the old railway lands. So bringing the trains back requires careful, sensitive community coordination as these historic lands are reclaimed to lay down the new tracks.
So what you should take away from this explainer is a profound sense of anticipation. We're looking at a railway born in unimaginable tragedy, which brought a brief, brilliant flash of prosperity before fading completely into the jungle and is now on the verge of returning. The legal and spatial foundations are all laid out, but the ultimate success of this historic rebirth remains to be seen. Will it finally end South Banten's isolation once and for all? Well, we'll definitely be watching closely as 2025 approaches.